Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and a great pleasure to be here. I'm supposed to make a few remarks about market economy and democracy. Many people see only contradictions and conflicts between them. I have a totally different position. I would say very simply at the beginning, there is no chance for a stable, sustainable democracy without market economy. And there's no chance for a stable, sustainable market economy without democracy. These are two sides of the same coin due to historical reasons, practical doing, and ethical reasoning. And I have 5 points to underpin this a little bit. First of all, we're here in a conference of freedom. But what's the concept of freedom we are discussing about? As we know from Friedrich Nietzsche, if it's a concept with a history, a notion with a history, then there is no comprehensive, general, timeless definition available. We have to look in the history of theory. And I will start with Thomas Hobbes. You can read in the Leviathan, a free man is one who is not prevented from doing things according to his will, which he is capable of doing by virtue of his strength and understanding. Freedom, Thomas Hobbes reminds us, does not cease to be powerfully significant simply because alternatives are not really attractive. Freedom is freedom of action. And from this, the political freedom was outlined and discussed in early modern times. Later, in combination with political and economic revolution, it opened up new spheres for action and created new opportunities for action. But in the same time, this positive freedom to make decisions also caused an overwhelming burden on the individual, which gave rise to the fear of freedom. You may know the book from Erich Fromm. And the answer and the solution was given by Adam Smith, the moral philosopher, not only an economist. And it's a twofold solution. Firstly, he presented a credible prospect of constructively utilizing ills for positive economic outcome. That's what we call the coordination of the invisible hand. And secondly, he plausibly justified the hope that society would hold together within the liberal order, or what David Hume named a common sense of interest is needed for all the individuals in this common activity in the field of the economy and political sphere. My second point, these concepts, based on the same fundamental principles and the same effects apply. It's about the responsible self-empowerment of the individual and the conservatory coordination of these individual desires, ideas, preferences. Historically, both democracy and market economy originated in the Revolution era in Europe from 1750 to 1850. Democracy, as you know, is characterized by centralized decision-making. In principle, includes everyone without arbitrary exclusion, and it's characterized by systematic slowness. It's a slow system. On the other hand, market economy inquires about the preference of the individuals and coordinates the resulting decisions decentralized in markets. It's a high-speed system. It's a system which always tries to ask what's new, what could be done, what could be changed. And from this, you can say that democracy and market economy are systematically involved by a normative co-evolution. Democracy requires external impulses to allow preferences to change and prevent society from becoming stagnant. The market economy, on the other hand, requires a stable and reliable impartial framework so that the innovative impulses can emerge with high dynamism. So you need a strong state, not a surveillance state, but a state who is defining the order and the principles for all kinds of interaction. Third, there are a lot of guiding principles, ordering principles, as we say, in the market system. Private property free to choose, and responsibility, liability. And this kind of responsibility is constitutional for the market order, otherwise it won't work. Second, it's a win-win action. It's not as a real estate dealer might think differently, that only one person will win and the other will lose. It's a win-win system, and therefore you shall not steal. And third, in this point, it's efficiency, effectiveness, and it's oriented by the consumer. It's a sovereign consumer who is steering this economic system by his decision he made every day, every morning, every evening. My fourth point, what's about social responsibility of business makers, business person and the companies? Milton Friedman published an article in 1971 about the social responsibility of business, and he was very clear and very simple. There's one and only one social responsibility of business: to increase its profits so long as it stays within the rules of the game. That's true, but that's only half of the truth. The other was written down by Edmund Phelps, also a Nobel Prize winner. Milton Friedman received the Nobel Prize in 1976. Edmund Phelps received the Nobel Prize in 2006, and he was very clear in the other point, saying altruistic behavior, moral-oriented behavior contributes to economic efficiency because it makes it easier to coordinate, it will reduce transaction costs, and it will increase efficiency of the overall system. So to make it very simple, we have a profit responsibility, but as a company you have a responsibility for your reputation. What's your acceptance? What's your position in the public sphere? And you have also some kind of political responsibility. You are part of the political system. You should make clear in which way new rules, new procedures will affect the business sector and will create costs or will lead to the targets which are defined in the law. Therefore, as I said already, we need a strong state, a state who's defining orders, rules, procedures. My fifth and my last point, the market economy derives its moral foundation not only from the fundamental link between freedom and responsibility, but also from the fact that the principle of fair exchange, which benefits both parties, the win-win situation, requires all participants to refrain from stealing. This may seem trivial, but inherently establishes an ethical postulate for the market economy regarding private goods. And what have we to do in the case of public goods, of collective goods, clean air, clean water, climate action? Therefore, we need, based on ethical principles, a definition of order by the state to make clear that free riding is not the orientation for private actors if you are engaged in public goods. And it was John Rawls who argued in his book about justice as fairness in 2001 that there's a need for a savings principle so that the society may sustainable, workable. A savings principle as a fair system, for a fair system of long-term cooperation between generations. The savings principle supports legitimate complaints about our predecessors, what the former generations did, and on the other hand, what the legitimate expectations of the descendants, of the next generation. We have to balance this. The generation just sitting here has to balance this in a way that we have to save some kind what we're doing in the legacy problem we inherited. On the other hand, what can we hand over to the next generation? The actions of the generation living today should be guided by this savings principle so that future generations have appropriate scope for action. And this comes very simply, as I outlined, from some basic arguments, some basic principles in the market economy. So I repeat at my end, freedom is freedom of action, free from arbitrary power, but it's limited time consistently by responsibility. Responsibility, what we're doing in our individual contracts, what we're doing inside the social contract, all together, and therefore what is needed, as an economist, I have to say it very clear, a common sense of interest. Thank you.